You are listening to WXRWLP Milwaukee on 104.1 FM and on riverwestradio.com everywhere. Now you can also listen by telling your smart speaker to play River West Radio. Support for this program comes from Collectivo Coffee and Troubadour Bakery, makers of artisan bread and scratch-baked goodies. Visitors to Collectivo's Bayview Cafe can look in on Troubadour Bakers as they prepare breads and cafe favorites daily. More info is at collectivocoffee.com. This is Cinema Fireside. Thanks for listening in. Really appreciate that. And as I was reading that intro, John Bezic walks by, and he just completed a feature film. So as it's oft stated on this airwave, he will undoubtedly be a guest sooner than later. It's like every time and that's if you're listening live. So, yeah, his appearance outside this window seems to be a rather perpetual event. My man Gabe calls in from Kansas City. Thank you so much, Gabe. And we, when we pulled up here in River West on Center Street for River West Radio, we were met with several colleagues right off the bat that we are very grateful for their presence. And actually, I want to get it up on the air that we're doing this show, but I don't know if I can do two things at once. So, yeah, I'm not going to... Let's see. Nah, that ain't going to happen. I could dictate it, but... So it was a heck of a weekend, in a sense, as weekend should be, and I'm sure in some, like, indigenous islands, it's a heck of a weekend, 7 days a week. There's just not that template that the West has, so we refer to heck of a weekend, and because that's where these arbitrary events are all piled up, and then... it's as if there's a void Monday through Friday. Just imagine losing 5/7 of your life, man, to the vortex of non-meaning almost, in a sense. So on Saturday, we got to see RZA with the Sixth Chamber at the Oriental Theater. First time we were in there since Milwaukee Film took over. And one thing we noticed right off the bat was that the projection was very bright. A lot of theaters cut down on the bulbs, on the luminosity to save dough on the electric bill. But it was very bright, like an acid trip. And RZA came out. It was the only Midwest appearance apparently here in Milwaukee, so that was cool. Thoroughly enjoyable thing because there may be like three actual narratives, going along. I mean, if you're in third grade or you fell on your head, you're probably just watching the film. But then you're thinking about your life, your past, your present, your future. You're like floating all around, and all of a sudden these dudes are doing kung fu in front of you, and like, oh man, what's happening? I was just somewhere else. So yeah, and then you have also your master plans going on. Your self-betrayals, your self-victories, your victories, and all of that stuff. And be, hey, how'd you like that film? You're like, what film? No, the film was very, very cool and so forth. But it's good to get that three-dimensional texture rolling in as well. Certainly, it was a great experience, and it was sold out. And they had the balcony and all of that. The Oriental Theater is very beautiful. It's a very nice event. Saw a couple friends there, and people that you would see at those sort of events. So it's pretty cool. That, of course, it meant getting home late, and I think it was Sunday night. Sunday night was a dark and stormy night, and I think that was the night of final sleep, sitting on the couch, reading a play, and when I got done with the first scene, out like a light, man, and then went to bed and kicked on WHAD radio dramas, which have been going on for over 20 years. And I think they had a number of good ones, but I only heard like a minute or so of each. Didn't even know what was going on. Just fell asleep. At Boswell Books, a collection of Somerset Maugham plays was procured. And we actually got down to gallery books that same day and picked up some Wicked theater, additional theater books, and one on the the group theater, and Brian De Palma filmed Dionysus in '69. If you haven't seen that, and if you're into film, Dionysus is in '69 would definitely be a treat. In fact, De Palma, before 73 Sisters, where he, became calcified as his suspense horror, perpetual homage to Hitchcock kind of guy, he was actually on the forefront of American experimental films in the late 60s and early 70s with Hi Mom, Greetings, I think The Wedding, Get to Know Your Rabbit, Murder a la Mode, and Dionysus in '69. So he was right there. And Norman Mailer too did a like at least a triptych of experimental films in that era. The most interesting being and successful of them being Maidstone. And there's also William Klein and Peter Watkins. It's what's unbelievable, like Punishment Park by Peter Watkins. If you had seen that at the time, I don't know where you would have seen it. Maybe on university campuses. It must have been really mind blowing to be in such an immediate reflection of the times, because nothing like that was on the populist screen, and it's something that would come close to that in tone would be obviously the fictionalized Zabriskie Point by Antonioni. Punishment Park. Well, actually, you know what? That actually takes us to something that it's not fictional, and that's American Revolution 2. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, and you're into like real life and all of that and what was going on, American Revolution 2, that's bad as hell for sure, man. That's actually the last shot when it's kind of like this aerial thing over the graveyard. It's like, man, couldn't the rest of the film been slick like that, but hanging out in the pool room, thumbs up on that as well. And some of the community meetings, thumbs up. Yeah, American Revolution 2, that would definitely be something to see. Punishment Park would be something to see. Putney Swope, man, that is killer. That, if you haven't seen that, that would be something to see. William Klein's Model Shop would be something to see. All from that experimental era from the 60s and 70s. And actually, if you're into that, but in a very experimental form, you can read Binghamton Babylon about their film department from 67 to 77. Pretty incredible. And, Nicholas Ray goes there to teach, Dennis Hopper shows up, and so forth. So if you're into that, and that's an era of newness, of exploration, where as like you have your authors, you have a 20 period in the 20s, obviously, with Hemingway, Faulkner, Fitzgerald, and then you have your modernist era with Dickey, Cheever, Updike, and all of that stuff. And these were eras of not Hemingway. There's no little intellectuality in that. I mean, he actually writes like a high schooler. If they wouldn't know it was Hemingway, and you said, hey, this is what I wrote, and he said, man, you better take writing 101. I'm not knocking him. He's fun to read, but it's no Fitzgerald. It's no the interiority, the advanced declaration of interiority as we have now. So yeah, Hemingway is great. He rides the surface. He has his own style, and if that style would become redundant with other authors, it just wouldn't float the boat. I mean, only a few can get away with it, and then it's like, nah, guys, you got to be writing. You can't be doing this. So again, yeah, Hemingway's he's a writer for sure, but it's not at the level of Fitzgerald, and Faulkner is just like this dense repetition, like a Dow Mossman in The Stones of Summer. If you've ever encountered that lengthy tome, you'd see the light in that parallelity. Gabe, we have certainly not forgotten about you. So film scene 36 Chamber for sure, and great theater books. Unfortunately, we missed the 35 millimeter screening of Barry Lyndon, which is last week, much to our shock. But I guess we ate well Yeah, no need to apologize. What's that? Oh, yeah, sorry to bother you. There you go. We checked that out at the Avalon Theater. Thanks a million, man. Got my cohort here filling in the gaps of memory. And yeah, sorry to bother you on the money. And I'll point it out when the scenes that were pointed out as being the signifiers of its um, value system, such as when he's on the phone at the beginning of the film and he physically gets dropped into the households where he's calling. It's not as effective as you would think because it kind of looks stagey and there's nothing in the writing that like, oh man, I'm dropping into a real household making these annoying um, telemarketing calls. It's yeah, it works more as a conceptual conceit in the way it was actually done, but as an overall film, as an overall concept. Sorry to bother you if you're into film would be one of those kind of must see films. Um, Culturally, you have the landscape of Oakland, the people in Oakland, the circumstances that these particular people are experiencing in their particular, level at life, working through this low level job, telemarketing, and this kind of like Kafka-esque telemarketing gig, and, in a sense, rising upward. So it's definitely it's a film for now to see it now, and it will be uh, a necessary cultural artifact in 10 to 20 years from now. Because when I think we were seeing, oh yeah, Romeo and Juliet, and these films become dated because they're so of their time that there's no sense of generality that can survive um, reflection. It's like, oh, this and that. I think, like, if you go to films from like around 2082 or so, the dress and so forth is so just kind of like cool in general that it has a more maybe timeless feel to it, whereas the 90s are like the 60s that are so exaggerated in style and language that it's definitely they remain of their time. So it's interesting. And Gabe, I'm going to let you on in a second. In the late 70s and early 80s, the lighting for film was at its most natural. I mean, those films can be seen hundreds of years from now, and it's like, oh, that's the way people really looked and light really looked. And then it was actually Zav who pointed that out, that stylization of lighting into the mid, maybe 80s and into the 90s and so forth. And then they chilled back out in the 2000s. But it's the mid late 70s and early 80s where there's this absolute realism in lighting. So see for yourself, see what you think. Okay, Gabe. Oh, one other thing. On Sunday, we checked out the new Milwaukee Bucks arena. It was totally cool. Thousands of people, bright light, just complete like trip being in this huge thing, completely new. Just a great time, and it was out of the blue that we found out about it. We were driving north to go to the Autobahn. It was mentioned, and we turned around, went south, and hit that. And then it started when we got home. It was raining, a mega dark and stormy night, and it was man, it was bad. And that's when I started reading Mary Drayton's The Playroom, and that was totally cool. And my man Gabe, I'll just give you a heads up here. I will put you on, my man, and we'll see if you're still with us. Ready, steady, go. My
Hey,
man.
hey,
K's for horses, highs for humans.
hi,
Hi, Gabe. Are
hi,
you playing
Mike.
ping pong? It sounds like it.
No. I'm just hitting my notebook.
Okay, well, that's a good thing to do because it lets it know that you care.
Yep. Well, it lets it know that I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes. Um, Yeah, I've just been in a great watching environment lately. I've been, you have these days where you just get the job done with viewing, and other days where you just need to take care of business, and everything else has to come first, so you can really thoroughly enjoy that film in the right space, in the right environment, when you're not pressured, when you're not procrastinating or putting something else off, so you can really fully give yourself to this experience. Whether it's reading, whether it's music, whether it's NPR, whether it's radio or whatever it is, a radio drama. So you can fully immerse yourself in what you're doing, where it's not just leisure, where it's education, it's entertainment, it's essential to your lifeblood. And getting all of your life's work out of the way, just so it's done. Clean the house, just clean it. Dust. If you need to dust. If you need to, go grocery shopping, get it done so you can fully absorb the things that you like to do in your life. The people that you like to spend time with, you can be present. You don't have to turn into a block monster. So watching a movie, it's a very sacred act for me. It's, even a bad film. I watch the film, I watch the cinematography, I pay attention to the editing, the extras casting, or the lack of extras casting, the lack of logic at times, the lack of there being any sort of cohesive sense or order or necessity for the film. And on the exact opposite, those films are few and far in between. My ability to watch a film that is so obviously bad and just mainstream and unessential and unimportant, uninteresting to my sensibilities, it's not going to stick out in my memory. I'm not going to remember mise en scène. There's nothing potent about this movie, and over the years I will forget my experience of watching it. By 15 minutes in, I am checked out lately. Even movies that I feel can offer some value to seeing what is the commercial enterprise, where is the big blockbuster, non-Marvel blockbuster Hollywood film currently at? What is the zeitgeist? And I can't do it. I will not do it anymore. I occasionally go off on these little asides where I'll watch some of these films just to catch up, purposely watching films that have gotten, notably bad reviews just to keep a balance, but I just don't think that there's enough time in life to warrant that anymore.
You're a good man.
So,
you've got strong ideals.
I just really don't. I think I've seen enough bad films for one lifetime. I think I got it down. I think I'll be fine. I don't know, the formula doesn't seem to be changing a whole lot. There's a handful of 1%, 2% minor marginal details that shift, but if you look at bad mainstream blockbustery films from the 80s, the 70s, there really isn't much different besides the really and ultimately, if you were blind and if someone was telling you or describing the film to you as they were watching it, there really would not be much different. Blind and deaf, and somehow someone's communicating this film to you through braille or through some means of touch, and you're able to experience the film in real time. There's really not much difference between a bad film from 50 years ago as there is today. So don't worry. Do not settle for bad cinema. There's so much good stuff that's been made since the dawn of cinema. You do not have to watch a bad film. With that being said, there's plenty of interesting stuff, even stuff that's disappointing. You go into a film with a set of expectations or a set of hopes, a set of dreams. It's almost like a family reunion. This is going to suck, but you might be pleasantly surprised. And with the right set of eyes, you can walk away from a dreadful experience having had a great time. You can learn something. You can ignore the bad, focus on the good. Okay, you're surrounded by idiots, big deal. Welcome to existence. You look for the one or two people that are not, or even look for the good in the 30 people around you that are. There's good qualities there. You just got to scratch that surface off. Not all bagels look great on the surface, but you know what? 1 out of 10, even bad-looking bagels underneath, you might just get a 1 in 10 bagel. It might just surprise you. Even Lender's bagels have their qualities. They're manufactured, they're preservative-ridden, They're kept in freezers. They're like highly processed. They're highly unoriginal. But there's something still unique about every single Lender's bagel that you're going to eat in your lifetime. You can put a different item on that Lender's bagel. Anyway, metaphors aside.
That hypnotized me. Thank you.
Okay, so, Mark, I'm glad you were talking about that realistic look of cinema from the late 70s and early 80s.
Oh, yeah, why is that?
Well, because you have these films that were going for this type of sort of pseudo-quasi-realism around that time, this sort of dramatic post-television, made-for-TV movie heightened reality, where they wanted like a lack of editing, a lack of presence. They wanted this sense of realism, but also they wanted this sense of Hollywood authorship, where you're very aware that you're watching a film, but you're also unaware, like that blurred line. It's almost like inversed fourth wall breaking, where instead of the movie coming to you, you go into the movie. Movies like Ordinary People, Kramer versus Kramer. Both of those films happen to be Best Picture winners. There are dozens and hundreds of other examples. These smaller films, there's a movie called Testament from 1984, which is this almost completely forgotten masterwork of a film that involves a community reeling with the after effects of nuclear fallout. And now the nuclear war has not destroyed everything, and in fact they staved it off before both countries completely annihilated each other. But the fallout of radiation slowly kills the neighborhood. And this takes place in suburban America, and it's just shot with this sort of average, ordinary, expensive made-for-TV look, and it's just gorgeous, And the way that those films were shot was different. The film stock was different. The processing methods were different. They weren't processed digitally after they were shot on film. That was the big difference in the 90s, is that after those movies were shot on film, they were preserved. They were shot on a higher quality of film. They had a different type of saturation. They had a different look that they were going for, and they were processed digitally immediately. So even though the original prints are shot on film, 92% of the work that's done right after the master shots are done, everything was digital. I think that started in around 92 or 93. You see a stark change in the look of film right around the Jurassic Park era. The crispness of films, the sort of the sharpness, that sort of Hollywood realism, where there is a sort of photorealistic quality, but it doesn't have that light realism that Mark was talking about from films from that, I'd say about 77 until about 82. In some cases about 85 or 86, depending on other studios like Embassy, Avid Entertainment, smaller Hemdale. Those were companies and studios that shot in that hyper-realism style, or should I say unhyper, sort of like detached realism style. Merchant Ivory films were shot in that very, very casually beautiful, serene, long sunlight, long rays of light. Room with a View is a great example of that type of lighting and that type of cinematography. But invisible cinematography, almost a lack of cinematography. Stuff like that. Howard's End is another film that has that. I don't know if there's a better looking film that I've ever seen than Howard's End. And it's a film that's not often cited for cinematography or for editing, but man, is that movie seamless. That is just an involving soap opera melodrama. If you were to translate what's going on in Howard's End and just put it into another time period and change the circumstances of it, it would just be the plot of a soap opera on like a daytime television show. But because of the austerity and the conviction behind that film's resoluteness of period, that film is just so convinced that I'm convinced. I've seen it twice, and I rarely watch movies more than once in the last couple of years, but I just had to watch it again. And I couldn't put my finger on what it was that was so intoxicating, and that's what it is. It's that almost impressionistic quasi-realism where it pulls you in. And that's just super cool stuff. Merchant Ivory films are almost unparalleled. at doing that kind of having that kind of, even their bad films have that pull, that magnetic draw. So that's super cool stuff. Yeah, Mark, I love what you said about Sorry to Bother You, because it is. Cool. It's like this heightened, surrealist, abstract thing that is very worthwhile and notable, but it's also it needs to be looked at as abstract from a certain point of view. It's the more time that passes between my original viewing of it and the more I think about it, the more I like it. I think maybe there were some budgetary restrictions, and maybe there was some unshot sections of the script, because there definitely feels like there's jumps, or there's gaps, or there's things that are left like there's things that are just half finished or half thought out, and maybe that's my own anticipation of what I wanted from some of these scenes, or my own expectation, or my own ego of what I would have done, or what I want from this scene, or where I want this storyline to go, and not being able to let go of myself and putting too much of me in the film. I always try and let go of me, but obviously that's never possible.
No, why put yourself out of the picture, man? There's enough objectivity. You be as subjective as you want.
It's true. But I always try and look at it from the director's point of view, or the 1,000+ people that work on every film.
Oh my, you can't do that, man. That give you, that fry your mind.
Well, welcome, welcome, Mark. So, a movie like that just has so many moments that I just could not believe I was watching these different moments in the same film in a multiplex theater in a mall. The horse people, not to blow anything, not to give anything away, but horse people, the cocaine scenes, the pictures that are on the wall throughout the background, throughout the entire film, is my favorite aspect of that movie. There's a scene where there are 3 pictures on the wall showing an older man who's running the company, and it says great moments in history. Picture 1 is of this man who is the head of the company, earning his first $20 bill. The second picture is of him closing a deal with a major real estate mogul. The third picture is of him in a strip bar with a stripper on his lap with a big pile of cocaine and
great. More power to that situation.
Well, but it's presented as these plaques that you do see in boardrooms, and it's just there's so much straightforward, I don't want to call it one-dimensional, but just non-abstract satire that's just absolutely dead on throughout the film. That's the mind of Boots Riley put literally on screen. Some of it works, some of it didn't work for me. But I think it's just a noteworthy addition to the film canon this year that I thought was very funny, very welcome. I have to admit I was really annoyed by a lot of the film while I watched it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I like the film, and the funnier I think the addition of Patton Oswalt's voice is. Yeah,
did you ever read his book, Patton Oswalt's book? And then the other one, the companion piece, is Owen Lieberman's book.
Yep. Owen Lieberman's Movie Fiend is one of the greatest books about film criticism. It's one of the great film memoirs ever written. And Movie Fiend, or
Silver Screen?
Patton Oswalt's Silver Screen Fiend. That's a book that once I get these 13 or 15 or 32 other books out of the way first, that's going to get devoured because that's a must read. That's if you are serious about film criticism and other people's fetishistic, insatiable desire for film and film culture and film life, that book cannot be skipped. It needs to be read. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I read Patton Oswalt's first, and then went on to Owen Lieberman's, which is more serious and dense. And it was 2 very good reads. So if you're into film, watching film, thinking about film, and also how that experience interacts with your own life and forms and a robust tapestry. Those two books are highly recommended.
Absolutely. Mark, there were actually a couple of films that I saw a couple weeks ago, but because we just had this like dense, non-stop onslaught of like Rocky sequels guests, like just one after another after another.
Oh, it's a thrill a minute.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It was just like, who's going to be on this week? What are we going to talk about? What is going to happen? So I guess it's not a Rocky sequel because we know exactly what's going to happen in a Rocky sequel. But I finally got around to watching a handful of older films that I've been like dying to see. Society from 1989, which is just this, I wouldn't say obscure, but it's one of the smarter horror films of the 1980s, and it's
What's
just
it called, my man?
as good as...
What's it called?
It's called Society.
Okay.
It's from 1989. It's directed by Brian Yuzna.
Okay.
Yuzna, and it's much in the vein of like Reanimator. What's the other one? From Beyond, Terror Vision. Body horror films that have this sort of Cronenbergian sensibility, sort of like Paul Verhoeven. Extreme gore, extreme body, like where the psychosexual bind between dimensions, and the sort of David Lynchian surrealist factor, and none of the surrealism of that line between narrative and presentation of just non-literal ideas just happenstancically thrown on screen for whatever reason of transcendental meditation. Actual concrete things finitely put into form and shape on screen that I will never be able to forget. Body horror images. I didn't think there was a stone that was left to be unturned from that era that I hadn't looked at, visited, seen, or gone through. I by the time I was 21, I figured I had seen everything in that nook, cranny, and division, and that I had gone through every folder possible. I was wrong.
Wow.
Brian Yuzna's Society from 1989 has creature effects and body effects, and I don't want to call it gore because that's not accurate, but it's just this really beautiful, brilliant. It's obviously very inspired by like an American Werewolf in London and John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's really imaginative use of body horror and practical effects. Taken to the almost unimaginably surreal heights. The great thing about the film is that it doesn't climax to. It waits till the end of the film. I'm trying to like not get into like weird territory there with my phrasing. It is a film that I'm so used to speaking in very blunt and very inappropriate metaphors about this kind of stuff that I have to train myself not to. So it's a film that waits to get to what it needs to say, and it's well worth the wait, because on the way there, it's got all this like very nostalgic 80s trippy stuff that is not wearing out its welcome too soon. It's got that stuff where it's like that line between good and bad acting, but because you're dealing with storytellers, people that are actually interested in ideas about class, society, money, wealth, privilege, there's never this filler material. The movie is consistently interesting. It is still a 2-star, 2.5-star horror film. This is not some brilliant avant-garde, masterful work of art. This is a clumsy film at best, but it is one of those great clumsy films. They did the best they could. They did what they wanted. They made it happen. And that last 30 minutes of this movie is just, I was like waiting, like, okay, I want to get to this. I had been reading about this movie for about a year. I finally got a copy of it, and I was not disappointed. It's like that last stone unturned. And it's just like in this later chapter in my life, I'm just like, wow. Super cool. Made it, man.
When did you see that? And are we still talking about Society?
Society. I saw it 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yep. Just super cool, man. I just like, I didn't think that there was a film like Reanimator or From Beyond that was out there that I hadn't seen.
Mm-hmm.
and I was wrong. So that was just super cool. If you're into that kind of weird, trippy 80s body horror stuff, please do yourself a favor and figure out a way to see Society. Chances are that you haven't seen it. As I've talked to many horror aficionados who have either heard of it but haven't seen it, or people that have never heard of it and have never seen it. So I'm just like, man, I want to get the word out on this film because, many people of a certain mindset and not of a certain mindset have seen Reanimator. That is well established as one of the great horror films of all time. That movie like transcends genre. Is one of the great films of the 1980s, period, just because it is so otherworldly and insane. But yeah, Society is one of those films that's like right on the fringes of that same movement. So super cool. The Phoenix City Story, Phenix, not Phoenix, Arizona.
It's
Phoenix, Alabama.
Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix.
So when you see Walking Tall from the early 70s, that relates directly to when they say those Alabama boys or whatever, that relates to those guys in Phoenix, Alabama.
Absolutely. So in 1954, there was a series of investigative articles that were done by a major newspaper in Alabama that ended up winning the Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism. That uncovered a huge amount of corruption, drugs and human trafficking and gambling and just all sorts of other stuff, and I'm sure worse. But the Phoenix City Story just is for its time, vicious, brutal, and beautifully made, stark, crisp black and white noir. I don't want to say it's a noir because it doesn't have that sense of like surrealism or like that heightened film effect. It's shot like a documentary, but it just has these like really great divisions between black and white, scenes shot at night and scenes shot during the day. And much of the darkest material in the film is shot in bright, broad Alabama daylight, which I love when films do that. I love when horror films do that. I love when action films do that. I love that contrast of good and bad, of dark. I don't always want darkness to unfold late at night in the sweaty alley with rain-soaked this and rain-soaked that. That's one of the reasons that In the Heat of the Night doesn't quite, the film at least from 1967 doesn't quite hit me as hard as I want it to, because I feel like so many of the visual cues in the film, as gorgeous as they are, don't quite go far enough because they're so obvious. Even though Haskell Wexler's great cinematography in that film, The Landmark, it's just too on cue. There's something raw, sort of found and unfinished and unkempt, but beautiful. But it almost feels like a work of journalism more than a work of theater or film. Great stuff. I found out about this film through the Film Comment podcast, and it did not disappoint. Great acting, great stuff, and it is a low budget film from 1955, but it is a treat. It is a little scene treat. Stuff that Allied Artists, which was a company very similar to United Artists, they made films that they gave directors final cut. They worked with material that major studios wouldn't touch. And they put actors and screenplays and directors first, and it shows. So super cool stuff there. Phoenix City Story from 1955, highly recommended.
See, it says here General Patton threatened to level the town with tanks. They didn't shape up.
Yeah. I mean, it was the most corrupt city of its size in the country at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had to put the army in there to calm it down.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, someone's gonna.
Yep.
Yeah. I knew about that before because when I saw Walking Tall, and so I figured that all out.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, but not least, I finally got around to watching The Tale, which was the big breakout film at Sundance earlier this year. Laura Dern plays it's a mostly autobiographical film about Jennifer Fox, who is a accomplished documentary filmmaker who ventured into feature filmmaking. to tell a story about her uncovering of her own past of a sexual relationship that she had with an older man when she was younger. And it's an autobiographical film about her 47, 48-year-old self coming to terms, literally like speaking with and talking to and reconciling with her 13-year-old self about the events that took place in the 70s, in 1973, when she was younger. It's shot in a very candid way. It's not pretentious. All the acting is just stellar, beyond stellar. Totally convincing, totally in control. And the fact that it's an experimental narrative and it works, it pulls you in and it twists, it's nonlinear, it keeps changing its timeline. Characters from different timelines interact with each other, but it never feels stagey or phony or gimmicky. It's a film that emotionally constantly feels present and is constantly changing its emotional palette. And it's never quite sure of where it's at because the character is never quite sure of where she's at. And so her sense of place within the context of how she relates to the other characters, most of whom are memories, their emotional context and their contours change too. Not in like direct, constant syncopation with everything. It's emotionally messy, which I just felt was so refreshing to see. A film that is just very exact and very straightforward and very precise, like scalpel precise, but shows that ugliness, that darkness, that turmoil within a very realistic portrait of a human being. I was blown away by this film. I watched it last night. I was expecting to see sprocket holes in the film. From what I'd read about it, from what I thought about the film before I saw it, I was sort of expecting a very strong, independent film to have very obvious stitching. I couldn't have been more wrong. I could have not been more incorrect in my presupposing of what I was going to see. Very, very welcome addition to the film canon. Laura Dern is just superb. Absolutely a very welcome film. HBO, it's available through HBO, through any sort of HBO service. I imagine that they'll probably be releasing it on DVD or Blu-ray soon, so you can probably get it through your library system as well.
Wow, that's certainly amazing. You know, I wanna get back to watching films at night. It's just it's summer. There's a lot of activities. You know, we had the last Music on the Lake on Thursday, and then the Harleys are coming in this weekend. On Wednesday they start coming in. My man has informed me, and but I really hope even like tomorrow night and Wednesday night can actually attempt to see a film, because that's what you're making me feel like, Gabe, is watching one.
Well, watching a good film, and I'll admit it, about about half the films I watch end up having some aspect of disappointment where I'm just not into it, or I'm just not there. It's just, or the film isn't there, and something's not clicking. And sometimes it's not that the film is bad, it's just that this isn't working for me. This is not what I'm into. This is not what I love about cinema. This is not what I'm present for, especially in this particular genre or subgenre. And especially when it's something you're anticipating or you're hoping for that magical experience and it's just not there. There's this weird, empty, sinking, sucking feeling that can sometimes overwhelm, even though you're watching a mostly good film and it's a mostly good experience. There's just this feeling of total pointlessness to the whole enterprise, and especially when it happens again and again, when it happens in succession, when it's like a film that you go to the theater to go see and you and someone else have gone to see this and you're both sharing this feeling of this is not great at all, and everyone around me seems to think that this is great, and it is just not great, and it would not matter. My opinion does not matter, because it will not mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. And, you have that experience at home, you have it again at home, you have it again in another avenue or venue. But don't be discouraged. Continue. There are these great unseen treasures out there, and there are these great seen treasures. Mark, I'm so glad you brought up Putney Swope. I've been thinking about that film a lot lately. When I think about my favorite films, when I think what really are my favorite films, like what I would say would tie for like what I would consider like the best film I've ever seen. I mean, it comes down to John Carpenter's The Thing, the director's cut of Woodstock, Shoah, like the full 9 hours and 41 minutes version, Punch Drunk Love.
Actually, we saw Punch Drunk Love at the theater. What a treat!
Yeah,
in a retro, recently. So that was nice.
Yeah, I mean that is just a treat, a delight of a film. And it's not perfect by any stretch. The experience of watching that film is almost unequaled. Just the combination of factors of the final product of that film, just a happenstance of the final product, I just find delightful in a way that very few films even muster even an eighth of that usually. Mm-hmm. Just the constant use of surprise and absurdity and conviction. Just great stuff. But yeah, I would say like John Carpenter's The Thing, Shoah, Woodstock, Punch Drunk Love. I know that there's one I'm forgetting that I always throw in that bag, but Ozu's Late Spring, a handful of other movies in that sort of category. To some degree, like Walter Hill's The Driver, John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978 for various reasons. But one that I was thinking, and the more I think about what it embodies and what it means and its effect that it had on me, the more I think that Putney Swope really is one of the most entertaining and vital films I've ever seen. It's just,
Slim Pickens kicks it off. Slim Pickens kicks it off. It's in color. Then we go to black and white.
Mm-hmm. Just the absolute. The combination of and what's just occurring to me now is how similar that film is to Sorry to Bother You in many ways. Mm-hmm. That combination of really spritey, absurdist satire, corporate-based satire that also has its roots in this very real, very dark Black power. The racism, racist overtones. Inverse of all of that stuff too, sort of looked at from both angles of the Anglo-Saxon take of that, and also very scrutinizingly looking at it on the other spectrum of, well, there's a necessity for the inverse racism, the response racism that comes in response, that's going to come in response if you present a society and a people and a culture and a race with these options. What outcome do you expect other than an equal response to it? And also, very astutely examining the shortcomings and the failings of that response, but the necessity of that response, without ever overtly saying any of that stuff. Putney Swope is just one of the most beautifully and welcomely political films I've ever seen, without being overtly political. Loudly political in any way, shape, or form, and hilarious, just constantly politically incorrect and hilarious. And those last images, I just don't know that any film has a better coda to it than that movie. Those images of the money burning, of the transference of wealth through the metaphor of basketball, which is also a very racist and politically incorrect thing to put on screen, because Robert Downey's take on blackness, on African American society, is so messed up, but it's also extremely dead on. I just don't know that there's a satire I've ever seen that's funny. And the Robert Downey's voiceover acting that he does for Putney Swope, the title character, also is so off-putting, but so involving and so intoxicating at the same time. Anyone that has not seen Putney Swope from it's either 68 or 69, please do yourself a favor and watch this low-budget, semi-underground classic. It is a treat. It's not. You will not be disappointed.
Absolutely, my man.
You know, there's a lot of treasures from that era. And Mark, you'd brought up some of the underground, semi-underground stuff that literally, legitimately was underground.
And above ground, actually, that's the era also Persona and Hour of the Wolf. So there was also not experiment. Well, I mean, actually, Persona and Hour of the Wolf, they are literally experimental narratives as well. You know, but
those films are as experimental as they get
as European art films. But yeah, so the era of Putney Swope and all that is also the era of Bergman's Persona and Hour of the Wolf.
I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a more successful, in terms of my subconscious and conscious reaction to a film being melded, being taken out and put back in simultaneously, which is sort of the metaphor that's used in some of those juxtapositions, so that you could put any endless amount of meaning. You could write any number of books or papers about what the images in the film Persona mean, and they would all be right and they would all be wrong. That film has so many possibilities to it because it's so curious. It just has so much direct curiosity. I've never seen anything like it. It's one of the great films ever made.
Nice.
Unquestionably, one of the greatest films ever made.
Thank you.
I dare anyone to watch that. Anyone who is a serious film lover, scholar, critic, to watch that film, and regardless of whether you like the film or not. Bergman film, liking and pleasure is irrelevant when you're discussing stuff like Tarkovsky or Bergman. These serious, grounded, otherworldly filmmakers that really were rooted in darkness. I mean, it's just the prospect of enjoyment is so irrelevant when you're looking at great works of art like that. And even Altman, even some of Altman's best films, I just feel like this word "like" or "enjoy" or
Altman's really hit and miss. I'll tell you that much, because that Brewster McCloud, man, I can't deal with that.
One of the worst films ever made.
Yeah, it's
one of the worst.
Not happening. But as for early 70s LA, The Long Goodbye, nice, dude.
Well, the thing is that Brewster McCloud is one of those experimental avant-garde art films that does not jive. It does not work for me at all, but I respect it as a film that is taking a lot of risks, is a film that is going all out. I mean, everyone is smoking way too much weed, taking way too much LSD during the making of this film. It is so unhinged and so of its time that it's just too out there. There's not enough groundedness. There's not enough foothold for the film to come back to. And the fact that a major studio is funding this insane film, the fact that it has its movies that take cues from Fellini films drive me nuts. Because they're not,
I can see that.
They're not Fellini. I'm just going to say, I've said it before on the show many times, I don't personally care for about 90% of Fellini's films. I like some. I respect many. The great films, the ones that are so obviously great, I'm not going to waste my time to criticize them anymore because it's pointless to, because they are great films. I don't happen to enjoy them. It's irrelevant. My enjoyment is irrelevant.
Dude, I remember. That's amazing because 8.5. It's one of the greatest films of all time, but it's so. I think now is a point where there's enough people that don't know about it where I can kick 8.5 again into the lexicon for myself of the greatest films. But 8.5 definitely would be right there with Persona and all of that, man, for sure. And Fellini, I've seen many of his films, from to the obvious to obscure pieces like Orchestra Rehearsal from around 80 and so forth. So I haven't seen a Fellini film in a long time, my man.
I went through a phase where I was running across quite a few of them on Turner Classic Movies when they were really doing their best to spotlight independent and avant-garde and foreign stuff on Sundays. So I'd get done with work, and I would have Sunday night and Monday off. And at the place I was living at the time, it was just, Sunday night was just prime viewing time. So there was like these 3 movie blocks where they would show like a primetime film, like an art film, a classic art film or a classic foreign film. And then they would show something even more obscure, like really kind of on the fringy out there, lesser known. And then the last film that they would show late at night is something either like totally, like just a bad, weird underground film, or something very avant-garde, like just fringy, strange, unheard of. And sometimes I'd sit through all 3 of those films and just nothing but treasures and treats, regardless of enjoyment. Juliet of the Spirit, my least favorite Fellini film, but just a treasure to watch because you're watching a master filmmaker who's totally in control of his craft, completely immersed in his visual sensibilities, totally has his consciousness being put on film. I don't like his consciousness. That's the thing, is I don't care for the mind, for Fellini's mind. So what I see there, that nudity, that emotional candor, that extreme neuroses that goes so far into neuroses, it's like it makes Woody Allen seem totally actualized,
Nice.
Self-actualized. But regardless of whether I like it or not, it's just like you're watching a master painter, sculptor, artist, writer at the height of his powers. Juliet of the Spirits, La Strada, 8.5.
Dude, you're about to hear someone else at the height of its powers when he's going to be telling you, man, the curtain is beginning to fall. I'm serious, my man. I'm looking at the clock.
There it is. What are you going to do?
Well, what are you going to do? We're going to say
La
goodbye.
Dolce Vita. I'm sorry. That's the one I've been trying to remember. La Dolce Vita.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay.
You're good.
Anyway.
Hey, Gabe, my man, thank you for calling in.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you. This is great stuff.
And I look forward to next week. I really do, because each week is a trip. Luckily, it's put down in a journal. Otherwise, it'd be like the biggest blur known to mankind. Okay, with that,
sure.
Gabe, bless your heart, my man.
All right, Mark, I'll see you, man.
Thanks you
again. Thanks, listeners. We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
You bet. All right, so we got a minute to go of existentialism here with absolutely no direction in mind. Actually, there is a direction in mind, the reading of the closing blurb, which will be happening within whatever. So, yeah, if you're listening live, it is a hot, humid evening in Milwaukee, but it's like the streets of old Milwaukee. When you go to the museum, it's like this surreal fantasy, man, and going into old Milwaukee, life size. It's wicked. So that's what it looks like outside, with the trees being lit by the street light, and it looks like there is a breeze out there, which will push that air along, which is great stuff. Thanks, listeners, for listening in. Drink water, not soda, man. And if you expand on that idea infinitely, I bet you'll be good to go. We will be on at the same time next week on WXRWLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/shows and click Cinema Fireside.